In my experience, people are so obsessed with trying to get the shortest sentence, they tend to forget about things that are equally important. As a former defendant, I too wanted the shortest sentence and can understand obsessing or ruminating or fixating on getting the shortest sentence. But then what? What happens if you obtain the outcome you're after? Then you come home and you're not ready to rebuild and grow and recalibrate. And that's exactly what happens to too many people who traverse this wretched, sickening system. It's really designed for failure, whether your sentence is 6 months, 6 years, or 10 years. And our team receives so many calls from defendants who are on the other side of this journey, who in many ways never imagined that it would be over or end, yet here it comes. You're not serving a life sentence, it's coming. Our team receives too many calls from defendants who are struggling on the other side. And that happened earlier today when a defendant called to tell me that no one trusts him. Said, I'm home from prison, I have an MBA from a good school, nobody trusts me. Nobody wants to work with me. Nobody trusts me, he said it repeatedly. And my thoughts to him, and as I articulate hopefully well to all of you, well, what are you doing to change that narrative? What are you doing to disrupt this belief that nobody trusts you? And his response essentially was, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm a convicted felon. And therein lies the problem. If you're going to embrace this philosophy that as a convicted felon, no one can trust you or believe in you or support you again financially if you're looking to build a business or become an entrepreneur, then what does it really matter how long the length of your prison sentence is? 18 months, 24 months, 30 months. Thinking like that essentially means you now have a life sentence. You're not going to be able to do things that you'd like to do under this idea that nobody trusts you. So I shared some ideas with this executive who's now home from prison, and they seemed quite foreign to him. And here are some of those specific ideas that I embrace, that people on our team embrace, that the majority of our clients embrace. Talk about it. There's a book I liked called Malcolm Gladwell wrote, David and Goliath. Now, I don't love all of his books, but I really like this book, David and Goliath. And in this book, he talks about how underdogs have won throughout history. And he shares some very interesting data about how underdogs have won. Essentially, you have to think differently. Well, I told this defendant, or now someone who's on probation, as I tell all of you, to thrive and succeed, to get people to trust you again, to believe in you, to want to give you money or invest in you or hire you. You've got to think differently. Because in this modern age of Google, what are people going to do? They're going to Google you. They're going to read your press releases. They're going to read negative things written about you. You've got to take that into your calculus. You've got to be forward thinking and understand that regardless of the length of your sentence, you're a convicted felon. We get calls from people who got probation, who are struggling, who in some ways wish they got some time in prison now to figure it out. They're not ready. So in this book, which I encourage all of you to read, to learn to think like an underdog, you've got to embrace it. You've got to own it. You've got to create a message that identifies with what you've done. If you broke the law, you're remorseful. If you've created victims, how you're going to make them whole. You're going to convey why you're never going to return to another courtroom. To learn more about these salient points, I'll put a link to a 5-minute video I filmed as part of my larger video or longer video with Dr. Phil. So if you want to come home ready and get past obsessing over the length of your sentence, which I can appreciate, you've got to begin to think differently. In order for people to trust you, you've got to put yourself in their shoes. They're going to Google you and see these dreaded releases, money that you may owe, a version that's put out by the Department of Justice, a version that's put out by a prosecutor who wants to advance your career. So I'm of the opinion you should address the elephant in the room. When you go on a business meeting or an interview, or you're looking to fundraise for a project that you're doing, rather than wonder, do they know? Should I talk about it? Should I address it? Think like an underdog. Think differently. Address it. Talk about it. Share what you've learned. Because at the end of the day, what do people really care about? How can you help them? What's in it for them? And if you're able to convey strategically and thoughtfully, without blaming or excusing, how you can help them while addressing this reality that, yes, I have a felony conviction, I have a prison record, but if anything, I'm better because of it, you're going to be more successful. So to close, I'm of the opinion thinking differently includes recognizing that your best asset, and in many cases your best remaining asset, is your experience through the criminal justice system. So you lose so much, I understand, but what do you gain? You gain an experience that for some is fascinating. For some people, I can never do what you did. I can't believe you went through it. You're still standing and fighting. How? You can use it as an inspirational tale, as a cautionary tale, as a way to show that you can overcome bad decisions. Michael Santos is the greatest testament I know to that. Or you can cower. You can pretend it didn't happen. And you can make phone calls to people and say, well, it doesn't matter what I do anyway. Nobody trusts me because I'm a convicted felon. That isn't success. That's not leadership. And that's not what I wish for anybody traversing this wretched, sickening system. So I want to knock out this quick video. Think differently. Think like an underdog. Own it. Embrace it. Talk about it. Share what you've learned. And learn to use this experience of the system as a phenomenal asset that helps you and helps others. And if you can do that, you're going to be on your way to lasting success on the other side of prison boundaries. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time. Goodbye.